The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Tone Vase from Brave New Coin.
Thanks, Thomas. It's looking like a little fireside chat for now.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. It's just the two of us today.
Yeah, no, we'll have Paul Play of Airbus joining us shortly. He's at my place finishing up a business call. Get here for consensus, along with most of the other Bitcoiners all over the place.
It's the big event in New York City. It's all going down. Let's see. Moving on to issue one. Issue 1, Mycelium wallet to sell shares and release radical upgrade. Mycelium, the popular Android wallet, joins the crowdfunding club this week, offering Colu.cu tokens with plans to build a full-fledged financial suite. The company plans to leverage an open API and interoperability to become an app store for crypto finance. Tone Vase, your thoughts?
Oh man, so there's so much to say. Those that have been listening to me for a while, they know my view on tokenization. They know my view on altcoins, and I have to be consistent. Let's start off with, I really like Mycelium. It's one of two wallets I recommend. So the wallets that I recommend are Airbits, Mycelium, and that's pretty much it. Now, there is another wallet that I haven't used yet, only because I just don't use Bitcoin that often, and that's Luxstack. So the reason why I like Luxstack is basically because I know the CEO of Luxstack and I trust the company. Right? So there's a couple of reasons why you would trust the company. One of them is you use their product and you really understand it. I'm not that technical, so I can't dig into the code, but I do know a lot of people in the space because I'm a person in the space. So if I do trust the CEO of that company, I tend to value the product highly, which is another reason why I'm so high on Blockstream and the core developers, because I know where they are as people, and to me that matters a lot. So I don't usually mention Bread Wallet. People are like, oh, Bread Wallet, Bread Wallet. I have no opinion of Bread Wallet. I've never used it. I've never met anybody that works for Bread Wallet. I don't know what their politics are. And in this space, to me, politics is everything. And I really like Mycelium's politics. Having said that, and the fact that I really like Mycelium wallet, I have to be critical of this tokenization the way I'm critical of every tokenization, and I will specifically talk about why. So for starters, I'm not sure what this is, and I'm not sure what the legal standing is. To me, I'm going to be as critical about this as I have been about Ethereum. Just because no one has gotten scammed in the Ethereum yet doesn't mean there weren't ample chances. I thought Mycelium crowd sale was closer to what Paycoin did and to what Neo and D was doing. The idea is the same. Just because the people didn't go through with this, just because the people didn't walk away with your Bitcoin, doesn't mean that the crowd sale was a good idea for you to invest in. I have the same view here. I don't know the details. I tried reading as much as I could. I have not had time. I haven't talked to anybody about this. I've barely talked to Rasa of Mycelium, who's a friend of mine. I just got the contact of the new CEO of Mycelium. I will be speaking to him because, again, I need to speak to these people, because if I'm going to criticize something publicly or speak good about it publicly, I have to talk to the source. So without knowing the exact details, here's what I know from just reading. It's an SAR. I already forgot what that stands for, but it's not a share in the company. So they're looking to offer 5% of the company, but they don't know what that 5% is. So the 5% will be determined by the amount of Bitcoin that is invested to get this asset, which is not really an asset, because an asset comes with a certain legal definition. So already this bothers me, right? So it's legal, and it's not legal. So I don't know what it is. You can own it anonymously, which is a good thing because I'm an anonymous guy, but that is not what the law is going to want to happen. So anyway, you turn your Bitcoin into this, whatever it is, some kind of share in a company that's not really a share in the company. It all gets very, very murky.
It's a difficult thing because they can do these things. Like we can have tokens and we can have exchanges of tokens, but we can't really do these things legally. So they're always in this kind of gray area, and you're never sure what you're buying. I mean, there are two different companies. There's Mycelium Holding, there's Mycelium Wallet. You're buying a piece of Mycelium Wallet. I don't know what that means. I don't know what kind of returns you're going to get. It almost feels like it'd be better if they were just doing a Kickstarter where they just keep the money.
I know. Okay, well, there's so much I want to say on this topic. Let's say I've done a bunch of reading, even over the last few hours. I kind of understand what they're doing, but it is so difficult for me to articulate it right now to you. Even though I think I understand 75% of what they're trying to do, it's incredibly difficult for me to articulate it because this will be listened to by 100 people, and everyone is going to say, I'm wrong here, I'm wrong there, because it's really hard to articulate. Anyway, let's get back to my problems with this. The reason why these things are regulated is because they're hard to understand. Even for me, and I've been in this kind of world of finance my whole adult life, basically. And here's the biggest problem. This is the same problem I had with Ethereum. The insiders can buy as much as they want to dilute the shares from the start. You don't know what they bought because it's anonymous. They can sell it if it works out. They can not sell it if it not work out and it didn't cost them anything. This was my knock on Ethereum. You don't know how much the Ethereum co-founders could have bought at the best price of 2,000 Ether per Bitcoin, because all that Bitcoin was used to then pay for development. So they could have thrown a shitload of Bitcoin in there for the best returns on Ethereum and paid themselves back that Bitcoin profit for working for Ethereum. And then if Ethereum actually worked out, as it for now it looks like it has temporarily, then they have this lottery ticket of all this Ether that they basically got for free, right? So that's my knock on these things. I trust Mycelium. They had one of the best wallets in the space in forever. And I trust them as people, and I don't even need to know who they are. I trust Satoshi. I don't need to know who he is. He has a reputation. They have a reputation, but the reason why there is laws to security sales is to prevent this. How do you know that an anonymous founder of Mycelium isn't going to buy like 0.25% of the 5% that they're offering in a bunch of Bitcoin, get this Ethereum special appreciation right, and then pay himself the Bitcoin that he funded into the company, pay himself for working in Ethereum, because that's what that Bitcoin is used for. And then if it works out, he just got himself a lottery ticket, an anonymous lottery ticket, kind of like Ethereum. So again, this is why these things are regulated. And when you go around the regulation, and I hate regulation, let's start there. But there's a reason why it's there. And they already said that you can own these things anonymously, so you don't know who's buying them. And again, I don't know what the best thing is. I just don't like it. And the crowd sale in general, it's so hard to articulate everything on this topic. It all stems from the fact that there's millions, hundreds of millions of dollars going into complete garbage companies, whether they're doing something on the blockchain, whether they're trying to identify end users, which is impossible. There are so many bad projects. I recently said in an interview, when it got published in an article, 90% of all Bitcoin and blockchain companies are useless, and they're all going to fail, and they're meaningless. What is not meaningless is wallets. Wallets like Mycelium. Wallets like Airbits. I have to throw Luxstack in there only, again, because of a trust factor, even though I have not use that wallet much, but I'm gonna start. That's my next goal, to try that wallet out. I can't talk about the other wallets because I don't know much about them. I can talk about the wallets I will never use. One of them is Coinbase, for the opposite reasons of why I use Mycelium and Airbits. And I used to be a blockchain.info user. I'm not anymore. That wallet failed me a few too many times. Sorry, I have friends that work there. I have friends that invested in them. Sorry, guys. But I don't use that one anymore, but at least it's a good wallet. At least they kind of know what they're doing. And these things don't have funding. It's impossible for these wallets to get funding because they're not profit generating companies, but they are so important. So important. It's like mining, number one, wallets, number two, exchanges, a distant third, everything else, not even on my map. It's those things. And like just people like us that are teaching the general population of how to use Bitcoin. That's all Bitcoin really needs. What I've always been advocating for Mycelium, and I don't know, I'm not sure they're allowed to do this because of rules on app. I know iPhone. Just like there was a mining fee, which used to be completely voluntary, but now wallets force you to have a minimum mining fee. I wish these wallets had a donation fee to the wallet development team. I wish these wallets had a donation fee to the core dev development team. And then users in the wallet app would set either a percentage or a minimum fee, even if it's a few pennies per transaction. Even if it's like, 2% of transaction, unless my transaction is more than 1 Bitcoin. And then it defaults to, 10 or 20 cents. I really wish these wallets had like a way to be funded. And when they don't, Mycelium is forced to do this because they're tired of paying out of pocket for themselves. I really would. So in a way, I wish all that money that went to Ether, which I think is a horrible project. I wish all that kind of money went into wallets like Ethereum and Airbits. And when it didn't, they now have to do this Ether-style crowd sale, which I can't possibly support. I wish I could talk more about the financial details of it. I still have more reading to do, more studying to do. I want to talk to the CEO. I'm going to talk to Rasa, who's like their public face of the company here in the U.S. He's coming to Consensus. I'll probably going to invite him over my place just so I can talk to him about this. Mycelium is like one of my top 5 favorite companies in Bitcoin, and I understand why they're doing this. I don't want them to get arrested. I'm already on record saying every Ethereum co-founder is going to jail, and probably many others. And I don't want that to happen to them. I don't want it to happen to even the Ethereum guys. I'm just being realistic. And again, that's just my opinion. I don't know what else I can say about this, but I'll let you comment a little.
There's been so many of these token sales. There was just one recently for Tokenly, which is Adam Levine from Let's Talk Bitcoin and the LTB network. And it's one of these ideas where we can use tokens to replace gift certificates. We can use tokens to replace loyalty cards, these kind of token ideas. But again, there's this lack of clarity. And I loved your point, Tone, about anonymity, that usually we think anonymity is such a good thing. But when it comes to investing, if you're anonymous, you can rig the game. And that was a very good idea. I hadn't even thought of Ethereum backers who worked for the company putting in their own Bitcoin, getting Ethereum, and then getting their own Bitcoin back as salaries for their own company or bonuses or whatever. That's very, it's possible. We have no idea. This is alleged. But it's a very good point that anonymity is not always a good thing. And these crowds, sometimes there's reasons for the regulations. We think all regulation is bad or they're onerous, but sometimes regulations do protect us from shady characters like that. Not to say that the Mycelium team's shady or anything. I've met them; they're good people. I haven't really used the wallet very much. I was mainly an iOS user. They had kind of a weaker iOS version. I don't really know about some of the features they're talking about, being an app store, having the QuickBooks, Mint type management. That's been done before by a couple of different companies. It's interesting to see how it turns out, but I do think that they're going to raise the money. I don't think it really matters what we say or what we think about it. I think a lot of people are interested in Bitcoin. They see this as a good opportunity. What do you think, Tone? Will they raise the money?
Uh, no, they're definitely gonna raise the money. I heard people have already pledged over 50 bitcoins before, like in the first few hours before.
And it shows the support they have from the community. This has been a solid wallet for a long time. A lot of people have used it. You know, it's makes
I know,
sense.
but again, like I'm really worried that the governments are going to go after them for this later on. It's like it's a lot of risk. I'm sure they have a legal team, and I'm sure they think they're getting around these laws, but I don't trust the governments. I don't trust the US government. I don't trust the EU government. People think that laws aren't retroactive, but they are. What the IRS said about Bitcoin when it came to taxes, they're like, Bitcoin is now treated as property. They said this in 2014. Bitcoin is now treated as property. So if you bought Bitcoin when a Bitcoin was $100, and then you went and bought a cup of coffee, but the price of Bitcoin is now $110, you need to account for the capital gains of the Bitcoin in your $1, in your $5 cup of coffee. And then they said this is retroactive back to the Genesis block. That is a retroactive tax law. There is nothing stopping these governments from doing retroactive. Just because someone thinks that they got around the current law and the government is like, whoa, we didn't know that loophole was there. The only way that law is not retroactive is if your company is big enough and have enough lobbying power to go to these politicians and say, no, 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 don't make it retroactive. There is nobody in Bitcoin with any power. Nobody in
But
Bitcoin
you
controls.
do have to understand the frustration of the Mycelium team. All these other companies are getting all this money, some of them just for saying the word blockchain or distributor ledger technology, distributed ledger tech, whatever it is now. It's so frustrating. We have these important parts of our infrastructure, the wallets, the exchanges, the sites explaining it, that aren't being funded. I feel they probably had no other choice. Do you think that would you invest in a company where the idea was, you know, a wallet that doesn't really make money? I mean, it's tough to see them gaining money from a traditional investment path.
I mean, honestly, as much as I think this is crazy what they're doing, if I wasn't, kind of like supporting myself and everything I do kind of travels, if I had some extra money to throw around, I may buy into this, but not for their token, just to support Mycelium. I don't remember if let's put it this way. If Mycelium was able to put in their app a voluntary, like a mining fee to pay themselves, I would have been using Mycelium wallet way more often than I use Airbit's wallet, and I would have set that fee to be fairly generous. Like people don't really go out of their way and donate much money, but for Mycelium, I would have like contributed with every transaction, and I'm sure a lot of people were. Like if I do decide to buy into this sale for Mycelium, it would only be to donate money to Mycelium because I like Mycelium, but now I'm worried that they're going to get legal trouble up to their eyeballs.
It's a noble idea, Tone, but if you look at let's look at some various projects, okay? Pro tip, we raised around $10,000 to $15,000, which is incredible from our community, and those are all donations. They don't own shares in Pro Tip. Pro Tip's open source software. We just built it, and everyone can use it and build on top of it. But so that's 10 to 15. Then you have Adam Levine with Token Lead. They just raised $500,000. Not a huge amount, but a great amount for a small company. I think Airbit's also raised about $500,000 from more traditional VC methods, and then you have your other larger raises of $3 million, $7 million, 10. Some companies like Blockstream have raised 30, 70, increasing amounts, large numbers of millions of dollars. And there's something going on in Silicon Valley. When you can raise that kind of money for your idea, even if your idea is not that great, you can get some smart people to fix it. You can get some other people to fix that. You can really get it running and cranking. It can become a real thing out of nothing because of that funding, because of that belief that these companies are willing to put into it. It doesn't seem like that funding is going to a project like Mycelium. I imagine that they tried the traditional VC route, gave presentations, explained their position in the community, but they can't raise it. These other people that are perhaps slicker or sharper, more flim-flam men can say blockchain 1,000 times and raise money. What can be done about this other than trying this third way, this
Look,
new way?
what I've been saying for years, and I don't think anyone is doing this, but I've been saying for years, again, there's just so many few companies that matter in Bitcoin, in my opinion. And VCs don't see it that way because I think it's changing. I hope Bitcoin is changing. The value of Bitcoin is the Bitcoin itself. That's the revolution, the Bitcoin. To me, what a VC should do, and like, God, I'm not an expert in this, but if a VC has, let's say, $3 million to invest, I would use $1 million and buy Bitcoin and spend the other 2 million just on a good PR campaign for Bitcoin and explaining what Bitcoin is and investing in these wallets, because you're basically throwing away $2 million so that your 1 million in Bitcoin crushes the 2 million that you lost just to make sure Bitcoin goes up in value for being Bitcoin.
We could use a good PR campaign. It has been difficult. Bitcoin.com has been doing a little bit recently, but we haven't really had that mainstream push. A lot of people talked about commercials or larger groups or professional teams. I haven't really seen it.
Yeah, but
it
that's
seems
the thing.
like
I don't care if it's, as long as it's used. Like, honestly, I have an article out, the 7 use cases of Bitcoin, and none of them are mainstream. And most of them the governments do not approve of, but it doesn't matter because it's useful. The whole Panama thing that we talked about, again, the gambling market that we talked about, these are use cases. They might not be use cases the government likes, and these shouldn't be the use cases a VC should pitch. But all they have to do is explain what Bitcoin is and what it does, and let people decide for themselves how they choose to use Bitcoin. And the more people use it, the more valuable it becomes. And your Bitcoin is the return on investment, not the company. VCs have grown up for the last, probably forever, where it wasn't the token itself that returns the investment. It was always the company that returned the investment. Right now, you have the token that can return a better investment than the company itself with its profits. People just need to learn how to use the token. It's a whole new paradigm, and eventually someone will figure this out and how to, best invest within the Bitcoin ecosystem.
I hope so. Moving on to the exit question. What kind of wallet is on your phone?
I still have right now on my phone Airbits and Mycelium, but I've been using my Airbits a little bit more lately, but for really no reason at all. I'm a little nervous with this move. I'm nervous for the owners of Mycelium. I don't know what their new wallet is going to look like. I don't know what kind of regulatory and government pressure they might have because of this. But those have been the wallets on my phone.
And I'm, of course, a big fan of Airbits. I like that drop-down thing that tells me has a QR code and everything. Also, to address what you said earlier about Bread Wallet, I've met a few of the Bread Wallet guys. They're a good crew. Bread's more of a lighter wallet, though. Bread is one of those wallets where a new user might like it because there's no username and password, but they might not like it if they lose their Bitcoin because there's no username and password.
What is that? Mycelium I have switched. I still have like old devices with the original version of Mycelium where your private key was you saving a QR code. Then when they went HD, they switched the private key to be 12-character words, which to me is less appealing as a backup private key. The 12-character word versus saving an encrypted private key where a password to it. What is the private key structure and the backup structure for Bread Wallet?
I think it would be around the same. If you save the 12-word string, you could have a backup of the wallet. It's just meant to be a lighter wallet where you could just maybe put $5 in there and dump it out and then do something else. It's not really Whereas other wallets like blockchain.info or Airbit's kind of have an account structure where if you could, remember your name and password, you can always come back to it. That's the main kind of difference right now.
I like my Mycelium, I like my Airbits. I'm not a big fan of Change. If Bread Wallet, I like them both. The reason why I like both Airbits and Mycelium is because they're different. But if Bread Wallet is very similar to Mycelium, until Mycelium fails me, I don't really have a reason to go to a third. I will be supporting Luckstack, again, because I know the people and I want to support people that I like and trust in the industry. So I will be diversifying into that wallet as well, even though I have not used it to date, but I will. So those are my top 2.5, I guess.
Very cool. And moving on to issue 2. Issue 2. Japan considers making Bitcoin a legal currency. Bitcoin, Litecoin, and even Dogecoin could soon be recognized as currencies in Japan. However, recognition comes with a price, as these currencies would then be more tightly regulated and taxes, but it could lead to a massive cryptocurrency investment in Japan. Tone Vase, are we about to experience a Bitcoin tsunami?
I don't think so. Again, I don't think this is that big of a deal. I don't think most people care whether the government approves Bitcoin as a currency or not. Again, like the article states, it's good and bad. The good thing is that it's recognized. It would be, you don't have to worry about any illegality of using Bitcoin. I still argue with people. People in this country, everyone believes that you're innocent until proven guilty. I believe that has changed a little while ago. I also believe that laws, you're breaking the law unless the law says that you can do something. So most people believe that if there's no law saying you can't, then you can. I don't think it's that way anymore. I mean, it might have been this way 20 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. I don't feel that way. I personally get nervous. I don't like walking next to a cop. I don't like walking up to a cop. I just feel like if I move the wrong way, I'm going to get myself in trouble. I no longer feel like in the West, you're innocent until proven guilty. I think in the West, the mentality is changing to guilty until proven innocent. That's why the cops just go for their guns so quickly these days. And I think that the culture is kind of changing. So to me, I still today never ever use Bitcoin that can be connected to my name and address. And again, I'm the outlier. Maybe it's because I'm more cautious than I need to be. So if Japan declares Bitcoin to be another currency, then you can at least use it freely without worrying that by using Bitcoin, you're guilty by association of using Bitcoin, which may or may not be true in the US. I don't know. I'm playing it cautious. I'm assuming that they're going to frown upon it. So, but they're going to fully expect all tax revenue. So if you are using Bitcoin, you are fully tax liable for any kind of purchases. So it's good and bad. Japan is really weird about currency other than completely messing up. If you look at the history of Japan, and again, I've read a couple of things. Japan had no currency for something like 500 years. They kept diluting their currency until the people just stopped using their currency. So this is like 1,000 years ago or something. And then Japan had 500 years of no currency at all of their own, and people were using Chinese currency or rice as currency. So Chinese has a really weird history with currency. Also, Japan had to do something because of the whole Mt. Gox debacle. So they needed to call Bitcoin something. I like the fact that Bitcoin is currency because traditionally currency, you don't have capital gains on currency unless you specifically use that currency as an investment. So if you're trading currency in a trading account, then you pay capital gains. But if it's currency for use, you don't have to worry about capital gains. So in a way, that's very good for Bitcoin because you can just put Bitcoin in a wallet and use it every now and then you don't have to worry about capital gains. But again, the laws are whatever they make it. They can say you don't have capital gains unless it's more than 10% of your Bitcoin appreciation. So who knows what's coming next? I don't think it's relevant until we see actual court cases of people, going to court over what Bitcoin is in that specific instance. Bitcoin is a new asset class. It's going to rewrite so many laws. There's no point of even speculating. Oh, I think Paul freed up. I see him sitting here. Paul, you want to weigh in on this?
I'm sure.
All right, let me switch over to Paul.
All right, Paul Pui, Bitcoin in Japan.
What are we chatting about? We're talking about Japan calling Bitcoin currency.
So.
Every time I hear some type of regulatory body claiming to categorize Bitcoin, I laugh a little bit because I find it funny that we're categorizing anything as anything, right? It's all in the end, everything is money. If we give something value, then it can be traded. One of my brother-in-laws is one of these, what do they call them, sneakerheads that trade sneakers, buy them low, sell them high. And now are we then going to call shoes money and are going to regulate them as a security that you can't own it and you can't sell it to somebody unless you register them? And so I understand where we came from. We came from a world where there were actions that we deemed unfit for mankind, so therefore we wanted to regulate those things. And we had to bucket value into these different categories. And that was ideally to protect us because we're dumb people and we're lazy people. And so we looked to other people to help us out. So in the end, I think it's kind of silly, but I'll agree with Tone that of all the classifications that we could give to Bitcoin, generally speaking, at least my understanding of the US, I don't know what it's like in Japan, but my understanding as a currency that ends up being the most flexible for us to use the currency with, and that we can just kind of buy and use the currency for commerce without dealing with a lot of the burdensome tax regulations. And only if you are kind of trading it, then you have to deal with it. So I like that classification. Overall, I don't think it's going to be too meaningful. I don't think it's going to cause this big spike in Bitcoin value. It gives people a little bit more. It's that extra nudge that Bitcoin could use. And we just need a whole bunch of those little extra nudges. But overall, it's not a huge piece of news.
Let me just add something real quick because Paul just said something that jogged my memory because we were talking about tokenization on a previous topic. And just think about other tokenizations that existed before cryptocurrencies. And the one that really comes into my head is like airline miles, right? But airline miles belong to you. You can't then trade. You can buy a ticket for another person with your miles, but that's because it's regulated and the other person's name is on the flight manifest. And they know you bought the ticket for him. But there's no open market to trade these airline points. And going back to Mycelium for a second, those special whatever SARS, they can be traded anonymously in the open market. And what I think is going to happen is I think Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are going to cause major havoc in traditional reward point systems. The airline miles, even the World of Warcraft, whatever the gold or whatever the hell they do in there, because I'm not a gamer. I think so many loyalty points are now going to be questioned. Are they really a security? Because we have Bitcoin that can move like a traditional equity while active, while being distributed as a traditional loyalty point. I think there's just all of this is so murky. I personally do not have the stones to be part of a company or a co-founder of a company that would decide to tokenize unless they go through traditional means to issue shares or private equity.
Now, for this story, I like the optics of it. I like the idea of an entire country recognizing Bitcoin as a currency. I like the idea of starting a domino effect of other countries recognizing Bitcoin as a currency. And I do agree with Tone. I think Japan is the perfect place for this to happen because of the Mt. Gox disaster. Japan and their regulators might not have known about Bitcoin. As Losky famously said, he was in the room with the Japanese regulators on a different affair. And he said, we'd be glad to help you with Mt. Gox. And they said, what is Mt. Gox? And this was a big turning point for Losky, that he became kind of the protector cop of Bitcoin at that point because people hadn't heard of it. And millions of dollars were being stolen or lost or whatever happened with Mt. Gox. And I think while the Japan thing comes with the regulation, which many are going to see as negative, the taxation, etc., it's going to come with the acceptance, the permanence, much like the Steam story of last week. The inevitable march of Bitcoin acceptance. Everyone online takes it. Every country adopts it and approves it. This is part of our march forward. What do you guys think?
No, I would agree. I think that it's once again, it's the march forward. It's not going to be we won this major battle. It's another few steps forward. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this isn't the first example of a country recognizing Bitcoin as a currency. I believe Germany had passed that a year or year and a half ago with that level of recognition.
There's been kind of some hands-off laws where they're like, in Europe, we're going to treat it as this thing, and we're not going to tax it. In England, I don't know that they've really recognized 100%. The Japan one seems pretty special.
I thought Germany had actually claimed it as being recognized as a currency of all the different classifications, a similar way that different organizations in the U.S. have classified it as a security, and then as a this, and then as a that. It at least got a classification. If I remember, and I think in the U.S. we have not classified it, and no department has classified it as a currency. However, in I believe it was Germany, there was a classification, so someone can.
We'll have to look it up, see what the comments say. I do agree. The U.S., the IRS said that it was a property, and the commodities group said that it was a commodity. So there is some confusion there, but I think you just have to pay taxes to whoever wants the taxes.
Yeah, everyone's going to want to tax it under their own organization, and because it's so incredibly flexible and can do so many things, effectively Bitcoin is kind of a little bit of everything.
Forced prediction, exit question. Japan will recognize Bitcoin, yes or no? Tone phase.
Yeah, I think they will.
Paul Pui.
Recognize Bitcoin. I'm not sure what that means. I think yes, and that they already do.
The answer is yes. Japan will be the first country, I would say that, to recognize Bitcoin officially as a currency.
Might help.
And now it could help. And now the plug. Shop at purse.io. Spend Bitcoins, Litecoins, or Ethereum. Save 15% off Amazon. Sell anything on Purse merchants. Get your mother something nice for Mother's Day and save a few bucks for spending Bitcoins. Spend Bitcoin. Save money at purse.io. Issue 3. Lost $136,000 in Bitcoin? This mining pool is looking for you. Bitcoin mining pool BitClub got quite a surprise this week as someone mistakenly sent 291 Bitcoins as the fee for a $5 transaction. It's unknown at this time whether the user reversed the two fields or if it was a software error, but BitClub is doing the right thing, offering to return the funds or donate them to the Bitcoin Foundation. Paul Pui, have you ever typed in the wrong amount of Bitcoin? Ever this much?
I've typed in the wrong amount of Bitcoin, but I've never typed in the wrong amount of a mining fee because, we get a lot of people asking us to enable the ability for people to adjust their own mining fee manually. And I do think that's a bit of a dangerous capability to give users. Number one, because it's really hard to determine how much of a mining fee to send. Sometimes you really do have to send a large amount. And when I say large, I don't mean $136,000 worth of Bitcoin, but maybe $4 or $8 even. This is the kind of thing that's complex to calculate. I leave it to the software, and we've built software that makes it invisible to the user. Now, with respect to how this happened, I don't know what software was used to send this much of a mining fee. We have kind of upper level caps, hard-coded limits to the maximum mining fee that we'd send in Airbits. But there is
only $100,000 with Airbits, not 136.
Can't send a mining fee, but that's large inside of Airbits. But there is definitely the possibility. I think I don't know if Bitcoin Core probably lets you do this. It's a very flexible wallet, so that's a possibility. But I'd like to know, and I think this is the important thing, is really what happens to the money. And there's the piece of how the hell did it happen? So what can I avoid? And then there's the other thing of what actually ends up happening with the money. And I'm excited to see what happens. I've interacted with some of the folks over at BitClub. They seem like folks that mean well, although they've built an infrastructure that many people would see as kind of less than ideal for most of the people that enter their organization. So I love to see what they do. They seem to have announced that they will return the funds if someone goes and proves and claims that they actually own the private keys for that transaction. And so that, I think, is going to be kind of the biggest piece of the story. And I haven't followed it for the past few days. So I am curious as to whether or not that money had been returned or someone at least had proven that they owned that transaction. So we shall see.
It does seem unlikely that the money will be returned because it seems unlikely that anyone will claim it. moving such a large amount of money around may connote some illegal activity or perhaps some ill-gained bitcoins. We don't know. We are very fortunate that it was BitClub that mined the transaction. If it was, say, a random Chinese miner that we'd never heard of, I think the logical thing to do would be to run off with the money. It does sound like they've offered to donate the money if it's not claimed, and I think that's the best outcome for anyone. I think it could be much worse in the future. Tone Vase, what do you think?
No, I agree with that. And I mean, I think this is like the best promotion BitClub could have possibly had. I mean, it's free. It's this is probably the best thing. I've been critical of BitClub. I don't want to turn this into, whether BitClub, we're investing in BitClub is a good idea. People need to do their own due diligence. We can have it as a topic for another day. Now, the fact that they've offered to give it back to someone who can prove it, and like you said, Thomas, it's looking unlikely that anyone would admit to it. It would, like, if that person lived in like a tax-free economic zone, like if they lived in Shenzhen in China, or if they lived in the U.S., probably in Puerto Rico, right? Because you don't have to pay any taxes on that. So if you lived in some kind of zone where the government can't get you, you would go and claim it. And you may not even have to say what it was for. But if you show up and you claim it, they can trace the history of the wallet. Now, they did say that the money came from a mixing service. So they may or may not be able to, reverse engineer where was this money prior, where was this Bitcoin prior to the mixing service. So if that person happened to live in the right jurisdiction, and they didn't do anything too illegal with it prior to going to a mixing service, they may show up and claim it, but since they haven't yet, it's looking very, very unlikely. So BitClub is trying to do good things with the money. It's very good PR. Honestly, I think they're going to need that money so badly with what they're actually, with the operation that they have. I would not, I guess, look down upon them if they kept this money to run their own operation. Honestly, if that was me running it, that's probably what I would do. Maybe I would use some of it to fund Bitcoin Core and maybe, convince Mycelium they don't need to do their their tokenization. Maybe I'll give it to them to stop them from doing the tokenization. But I think it's good what they're trying to do with it. I think it's an amazing promotion for them. I think it's crazy that somebody would make that mistake. And if you're making that mistake, you deserve to lose that kind of money. I'm sorry to be so blunt. This is really, it's good that people are nice, but there also needs to be a way for this not to happen. There, like, maybe wallets can have some kind of extra notification. Like, do you realize you're sending $180 as a mining fee? I don't know what the cutoff will be, but I guess this is a warning to all wallets to help protect their users. There's nothing. You can also let people put in a warning, like, for my credit card, I have a set amount. Like, notify me if there are more than $500 transaction on my credit card. Same thing with my bank. I have a business account for a business. Notify me if my partner or anyone sends out like a $500 payment somewhere out of the bank account. I get notified. I get a text message from my bank. So these kinds of things, I guess, could be added to the wallets. I'm a wallet guy right here. So I think a lot of good can come from that. Maybe Paul can comment some more.
I mean, there's a lot of human elements that I think companies like wallets and exchanges can add that are not just technicalities, but actually they factor in how we behave as humans and the kind of mistakes we normally do. And so, we have in our app hard limits to how much of a mining fee could get applied for in case of any reasons, like a bug or a server mistake, or the network claims that there's a higher mining fee that's required. So hard limits that help prevent kind of these egregious type of errors. And then in addition, like, I think I like what Tony said, from the ability to spend things like a limit that's on my credit card. Like, Airbits gives you the opportunity for people to put a daily limit to how much they can spend. And if they try to spend more than that, then it effectively requires the full password versus a PIN or just swiping to confirm.
Right.
So things like that, I think, are a good human element. Giving people the opportunity to limit limit mistakes. So those are great options that I think are going to come forward in a lot of these different tools. Basically a second, almost like a second factor before you go above a certain threshold that you deem to be kind of high value. And I think we're going to get to see definitely more and more of that.
I think it's an interesting story because it shows kind of the problems with Bitcoin, where if you put 10 Bitcoins instead of 1 Bitcoin, if you make a mistake on the decimal places, you could send too much money. But it also shows the strengths of Bitcoin, that whoever sent this money accidentally can't cancel it. They can't get it back. They can't reverse the system. Once it's sent, it's sent. As far as a settlement platform or a way of moving funds, Bitcoin again shows its strength and its value, that it is one way. It is for adults. If you do make a mistake, everyone needs to send test transactions, send $10 first. Everyone needs to look at that box before they push send. There's a human element to this, but then for all we know, this was done on the command line. This could have been done with the core wallet. We don't know. Some people have speculated that the person intended to tip the mining pool $5 as a generous fee and ended up accidentally tipping all of their money to the mining pool and sending $5 to their intended target. So it is a very interesting story for Bitcoin. And just a little background on BitClub. BitClub has kind of a multi-level marketing approach to Bitcoin. So if you join BitClub, you buy mining contracts, which are cloud mining, and then you have people under you like Mary Kay Cosmetics or whatever. If they make sales, you get a little part of their sales. So a lot of people have been critical of the MLM structure. There's also the question of whether or not they can keep up with mining technology. They do have a deal with Bitfury right now. I think that's very good for them in the short term. But in the long term, if someone else develops a better mining chip and they can't buy them, or if they don't raise enough money from new people to cover the new miners, there's a lot of complicated math in there. They've been accused of being a pyramid scheme. I believe this is mainly due to the MLM section of their product, but the jury's really still out. But that's just a little background on BitClub. It could go either way. I don't want to judge people either way.
Yeah, no, what you said was pretty perfect. Those are the major criticisms. And again, we can save that as a topic for another day. I think it's a good topic.
It's a huge topic all on its own.
Next time BitClub is in the news, we can talk about it. There's also a pretty good interview on I think the Crypto Show where Roger Ver debated Jamie Weeks of BitClub over what they're doing. So again, I'm not saying they're trying to run a legit operation. I'm just not sure what they're doing is sustainable in the long term. So those are the general criticisms. And again, let's save that as make a note as a topic for another day. I think
and generally, we root for their idea. The idea of a bunch of people investing in mining, not losing their shirts, of mining being democratized or spread out to individuals and having everyone invest in mining, it sounds like a good idea. So on paper, I think that we agree and have similar goals, but as it turns out, we don't know. We'll just all have to wait and see. And investment is always a risk. In a way, you're gambling, and everyone needs to make their own decision and do their own homework. Exit question: typos in amounts, the user's problem or Bitcoin's problem? Paul Pui.
It's a little bit of both. I think we need to present a user experience that makes it fairly clear, and also a human element that can take what we think we can learn from human behavior as to what are realistic amounts. At the same time, there's no way you can prevent a complete idiot. And so the nice thing I like about Bitcoin is it actually takes Darwinism to another level, right? If you're going to be the idiot that really, really can't handle typing in amounts, then you'll lose your shirt, and hopefully that'll help you not be able to procreate and create more of those idiots. So
bank accounts have been like this for a long time. If you type in the wrong amount, it sends the wrong amount of money. This is pretty common.
Kind of, except that you can kind of cry home to mom or cry home to banker and kind of get the money back. So I think banks and custodial ownership have actually created dumber people because we've protected the people that kind of can't handle protecting themselves. And so we've proliferated that gene pool and therefore kind of created an economy and a people that have relied on that. We've relied on getting our ass backed up by this father figure of banking and government and regulation.
I agree with Paul, and I'll take it one more level up. I think the FDIC insurance is bad. Everyone thinks that their money is secure up to $100,000, and then they raised it to $250,000 $50,000 during the crisis, and it kind of made every bank equal. Oh, it don't matter where I put my money, I'd save up to $100,000. They don't realize that only 2% of that money is actually available to be paid out. So what that means is if 2% of Americans went and withdrew their money, or every American went and withdrew 2% of their money, that's it. The system is done, and there is no backup. So I think the fact that you have something like FDIC insurance prevented people from going out and doing any kind of research of what banks are actually safe. What are these banks doing with the money? How are they lending it? What are they doing with it? And it kind of made every bank equal, and I don't like that. So I do think that this property is good, and with every mistake like this, the wallet providers will try to put in some fail-safes to kind of prevent people from making these mistakes. But ultimately, it's up to the user, and I think the user needs to be more responsible.
And judging the banks became even more important after the failure to renew Glass-Steagall, removing the wall between investment banks and consumer banks. Now they're intermixed and they're all doing investments. So I agree with that tone. I think it's the user's problem. Users need to become smarter, but this also gives us a great chance to learn. As Paul said, Airbits has limits so that this won't happen. I imagine the other wallet software also has limits, or if they don't, they're adding limits to it right now. This is a learning exercise for everyone, and I think we're going to learn from it and do better in the future. While we'll probably see more of these mistakes, I doubt we'll see this exact same style of mistake. Hopefully not. Moving on, issue 4. Western Union invests in digital currency group, and former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers joins the board. Summers is famously not a fan of Bitcoin. While expressing interest in the idea, he claims that Bitcoin needs to shed its libertarian roots and adopt regulation in order to flourish. MarketWatch also reports that the digital currency group, like many others, seem to be shying away from Bitcoin and focusing instead on distributed ledger technology in the future. Tone Vase, your thoughts on this interesting development?
I've met Larry Summers. He was a speaker at one of the events put on by American Banker, I believe. I want to get that right. You know what, let me take that back. Maybe it wasn't American Banker, but it was downtown on Wall Street. I think he briefly talked about Bitcoin. I don't think he understands it. He doesn't believe in it. I'm personally not a fan of Larry Summers. I don't think he's that great of an economist. I think he's done way more bad than good. He admits he doesn't know how to spot a recession. He admits the government is powerless to stop anything, yet he's the mastermind that tries to get the government to control everything economically. So I find economists like him extremely frustrating. If you admit that the government can't spot or prevent a recession, then why are you doing everything in your power to control the economy? Just walk away. At least believe in what you're doing, and I don't think he does. So I'm not a fan of his economics at all. Western Union, I don't know what they're doing. Look, like I said, I don't think ledger technology is anything. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. I think it's just another database, and I think there's way more better database developers than whoever they can get from the blockchain world. I think that's all completely silly. I think all that money should be going to wallets and maybe some stable exchanges with some, backing. Maybe help Bitcoin Core develop their liquid product that will help stabilize Bitcoin as it moves from exchange to exchange, so they can share liquidity. I know it's a tough project, but at least these things help the ecosystem. It has nothing to do with regulation of Bitcoin. Bitcoin will not be regulated by words on paper. I mean, it's just not. This is the kind of nonsense that Summers is known for in the government. You don't write things on a piece of paper and expect someone like Bitcoin to follow it. The best way to regulate Bitcoin is to allow it, is to dump laws. Like, the best way to make Bitcoin irrelevant is to make drugs legal, to make prostitution legal, to make gambling legal, to completely rewrite the tax code so that it's A, simple, and B, there's no reason to hide your money from taxes. Allow free transfer of your money cross-border to any country anytime you want. That's how you eliminate Bitcoin. That's what would make Bitcoin useless. These are the kinds of things Bitcoin was meant to do. And if Summers thinks that Bitcoin will go to the next level, if it stops doing those things, he's dead wrong. Anyone pitching to investors that they can create a Bitcoin-like product not to do those things, they're just wasting their time and they're wasting investor money. People just need to live with the fact that Bitcoin does what it does. Yes, Bitcoin can also be used for some really bad things. I think Crypto Locker is pretty bad. I think if there ever was a provable case of a Bitcoin-sponsored assassination, that would be bad. I don't think that's proven. I'm also a believer that 99.9% of all assassination plots were either had government involvement, whether somebody on one side of that transaction is a government agent. So to me, most of these things are entrapment. I don't believe there is a big market for that. So yes, if Bitcoin is used for those things, that would be bad. But I see all these use cases for Bitcoin just because the government doesn't like a voluntary transaction with no victim. But the government doesn't like it, so it's illegal. And Bitcoin is thriving in that environment, and it is what it is. You're not going to change it. And trying to change it may actually kill Bitcoin. That's why I don't think it will happen. And these investors, Western Union and Larry Summers and whoever else, can invest in these companies only because they want to be cool to invest in the latest technology, but I don't think they understand what it is. I'm pretty sure Barry Silver understands what it is, but he also needs to make money, so he's aligning himself with these blockchain companies to try and give Bitcoin a better image, whatever that means. I think Bitcoin has a great image. It allows you to do whatever you want with the money. I can't think of a better image than that, but I'm the minority opinion in this case. Even within the Bitcoin ecosystem. I'll let Paul, who is more on the non-anarchist side, because he actually runs a Bitcoin company. I'm just the guy talking on a podcast. So
I think it's a very good point, Tone, that the way to get rid of Bitcoin would be to change the laws, to allow drugs, prostitution, gambling, movement of your money, to reduce taxation to a simpler system. That is really the only way to get rid of it. And that's also what they're incapable of doing. So Bitcoin is going to bring about that anyway by allowing it to do us to do it without permission. Paul, go ahead.
So actually, it's funny that you say that, because I think there is the potential for making the things that are illegal now legal. And we were just talking about this, I think, a few days ago, actually, when I was hanging out for a drink with Mr. Thomas Hunt. And we were talking about how certain we believe that cannabis would become legal in the entire country, starting with California. And should it become legal, there's a strong potential that now suddenly banks will fully allow transactions for cannabis and accept credit cards and allow these companies to hold dollars in an account. And that actually does eliminate one of the key potential uses for Bitcoin, is for cannabis companies. And so that actually, even though it's a small slice of the entire global economy, it's an example of, yes, actually making things more legal is a way to get rid of a digital currency that is not in control of the government. So to kind of get back to what was even this original topic was Western Union.
Larry Summers and Western Union investing in
digital. In DCG, in Digital Currency Group, and them being excited.
I always get them and Digital Asset Holdings confused.
I know, confused. But I do think that if I were sitting in Western Union and had basically a stockpile of funds and a company that has been successful for decades, but trying to understand what is the potential of this new technology, it's a drop in the. I'm guessing it is a drop in the bucket that they invested in DCG relative to what the company is worth. And so why not hedge against a massive shift in the ecosystem? And if your entire business goes to hell, at least you have an investment in the space that's going to disrupt you. And it's also an aspect of them being able to understand, for them to potentially sit in some of the boardroom meetings, understand the companies. It's kind of like me when I wasn't against Bitcoin, but I invested a little bit in Bitcoin early on, enough for me to care. And as soon as I did that, I said, I'm going to study. I'm going to watch the podcast. I'm going to follow the companies. I'm going to understand how the space works. That first few hundred that I invested, I didn't quite understand. I knew I cared. I knew that this is powerful, but I didn't understand. And this might be what it takes for Western Union to go, okay, now we're going to care. because it's that little drop in the bucket, but enough for you to try. And I do think that there is a broader spectrum of usage for Bitcoin than what Tone says. It's a currency, and there's your killer app. Having looked at the space and looked at the technology and interface with other companies that are building blockchain tech, there is a bunch of blockchain tech that I do think is fairly worthless, and it's in that 90 percentile that Tone would say. But if you craft the idea, the project carefully, keeping the values of decentralization in the blockchain tech project, I think very cool things can happen that use Bitcoin underlying as a currency to pay for what you're trying to do, but leverage the distributed tech in a way that we simply couldn't do today with any of the current database systems. And we're working on some of those projects as well, working with some other companies. And actually, even without the distributed ledger, you throw away the distributed ledger altogether. I really like the fact that Bitcoin has motivated people to just understand the power and capacity of cryptography, public-private key cryptography, what we can do with it, especially when we learn that if we own a private key, there's massive amount of potential for us to enable things like identity and proof of KYC to various institutions. It can actually improve privacy. And in the project I'm working on, even though it's a KYC related project, it actually improves privacy. So I like that we've motivated that. I like that it's bringing in more resources into this ecosystem to build the same toolkits that we can use for both distributed ledger blockchain as well as decentralized Bitcoin. It's a similar toolkit. And the more resources we get, the more that we can keep people who are passionate about the space employed and building things that they care about. And the faster this ecosystem can grow versus kind of withering away because no resources go to it. So I've definitely started to migrate into the direction of, sure, let's go ahead and build what makes things more efficient, as long as you keep some of the strong ideals of what made this technology powerful in the first place, and not rip out what makes it powerful. And when you rip out the decentralized currency, then yes, you kind of have something that's not all that interesting. But we can do a lot with blockchain tech as long as the blockchain is decentralized.
Yeah, let me just jump back in here real quick. So I really like what Paul said. I was actually going to mention it, but then he went full explanation mode. Is that you're not really going to take the time to learn something unless you have some kind of skin in the game. So that's for Western Union. It makes sense. Throw some money at it, and now you can dedicate people to it and justify it to your investors of why you have people fully dedicated to try and understand what's going on, and it is kind of competition for you. So it does make sense from that angle. As far as what I've said about the use cases of Bitcoin, look, I'm not against Bitcoin being used for day-to-day things, buying your coffee at a Starbucks, spending them on regular things that we normally use credit card for or a debit card for. But Bitcoin doesn't have that much of an advantage in those areas. It has advantages in areas that the governments say you can't use money for. Bitcoin has a huge advantage. And that's what I tend to focus on as a prime use case of Bitcoin. For Bitcoin use cases that you have multiple other means of doing without Bitcoin, sometimes one is more advantageous, sometimes another one is. Yes, when you use a credit card, your identity is at risk. But as long as you catch somebody else spending on your credit card, you are not liable for that. So that is a good thing. Also, instant settlement is a terrible thing in 90% of the time, which is why I don't understand why people think Wall Street needs to get rid of their 3-day settlement. That is not a bug. 3-day settlement is not a bug. 3-day settlement is a feature. I've been saying this for a long time. Regulation is preventing 3-day settlement. It's not technology. They've had the technology for 20 years. If your email can get to you 20 years ago in seconds, there's no reason why anything on Wall Street can't get to another person in seconds. It's not a bug that it takes 3 days. It's a feature. It's a regulatory feature. They can easily have the technology to do it. That's not the problem. But again, it's the features of Bitcoin that allow it to be used in places where other use cases just didn't exist before. That's what has made Bitcoin thrive until this point. And I don't think we're done. I think Bitcoin will grow based on these features that only Bitcoin has. Another 100 to 1,000-fold before Bitcoin gets wide adoption for things like Amazon and Starbucks and every store accepting it. I think it has a lot more to go in its features, and hopefully I hope, is going to collapse all these laws. It's going to just wreak havoc on all these laws that governments have implemented because they don't like what we do. It has nothing to do with like one person's morals, try to control another person's morals. I think all of these laws are going to be in jeopardy thanks to Bitcoin, and I love it.
And I do think if Western Union's looking to learn about Bitcoin, they've chosen really well with Digital Currency Group. It's a good team, and I think they'll be able to learn a lot. Moving on to the exit question. How long until Western Union's stake in Digital Currency Group will be worth more than Western Union itself? Follow-up, yes or no question. Is this Western Union's Yahoo Alibaba investment moment? Paul Pui.
I'll give them probably max 5 years. I think actually there's some really cool remittance companies leveraging crypto that could very, very easily disrupt Western Union's model. And there's even one idea that I've been pitching around to a few people of a way to leverage crypto that looks like no company is focusing on that could solve some of the biggest issues that remittance companies have. And it definitely leverages not distributed ledger, it leverages actual Bitcoin and Bitcoin's blockchain to do exactly this. And so I'm hoping to enable some company to build it because I'm excited about what its potential is. But I'll give them 5, maximum 10. But I think in 5 years we'll see some really powerful remittance tools that could replace a majority of Western Union's business. And for all we know, it's actually Western Union that's going to slurp up some of those ideas and projects and just incorporate them into their business portfolio. And so that could be the reason why they invest.
I don't think you answered the question.
How long, right? I heard how long before.
How long before their investment in digital in
DCG
in DCG is worth more than themselves, but we don't know if DCG is going to invest in those companies.
I feel like they would. I would guess that. This is based on a guess that DCG would invest in remittance companies, and I think that has been one of DCG's main focus in Bitcoin companies are the ones that enable remittance. So like they definitely invested in quite a few companies that are remote developing country exchanges because they are kind of the endpoint of a lot of remittance tools. So I'm going to guess that they are going to invest in a lot of remittance plays. They have and they continue to.
I'll take the other side of that. I think Western Union would have been better off taking that money and actually looking into the remittance plus Bitcoin companies because Western Union might actually make that concept efficient. So I think Western Union would have been better off to focus on the specific element of moving value across borders via Bitcoin than investing in a fund that's going to fund things that have absolutely nothing to do with this kind of element of Bitcoin and something like distributed ledgers for internal systems. So I think Western Union would have been better off focusing specifically on the sector of value transfer across borders and not, security stuff, which is what Wall Street is very high on. So I actually don't think their investment is going to be all that big eventually.
I think there's still a chance for Western Union here. I've said before, I like the RoboCoin idea of a kiosk in one country and a kiosk in another country. Western Union could replace all of their tellers with automatic machines. The automatic machines, you put cash in, it converts it to Bitcoin, sends it to another country, converts it back into pesos or whatever local currency you're using, and then your friend or your family member can go to that machine, withdraw the money. I think that kind of system with Bitcoin as a backbone, eliminating all of the tellers, all of the potential wire transfer fees, any of the time that it takes to send these systems, perhaps the lack of accountability or the ability to edit these systems will all be gone, and Western Union could focus on Bitcoin and the blockchain. Yeah, I'm not sure that they will, but
let me just jump back in there real quick. So again, this is a huge potential. If Western Union does go into that, and Western Union is a huge company, I think it's like over 100 years old, they have some lobbying power. They can then stand up to Congress and say, look, we need to compete. We need to eliminate all KYC and AML for small amounts, like $200, $300, maybe $500. All of the KYC, all of the regulatory environment for amounts under $500 need to be completely eliminated. and then Western Union can install these automatic kiosks using Bitcoin as the transfer mechanism and completely put all of these companies that are Bitcoin remittance completely make them useless and utilize Bitcoin. But again, it requires someone with the power. As much as I don't like the government, this is what needs to be done. If Bitcoin forces the elimination of these kinds of silly KYC AML for transactions under, say, $500, that's it. Western Union can just take over that whole space using Bitcoin, and everybody's happy. I'm happy because some KYC AML got eliminated. I hate AML KYC.
And this is really their last chance to save their brick and mortar empire, to really do something with it. They have all of these locations, and they could put kiosks in all of these locations. This is similar to when Blockbuster was dying, and people were thinking about Blockbuster Netflix hybrids, how you could bring your movies back to a local Blockbuster, get a new movie, send that movie out in the mail. Maybe there's other services like downloading files or something that you could have done while you were at Blockbuster, reasons to have these physical locations. This is their big chance. And if they lobby, like you said, they could do it. But if they don't, they'll be replaced by something like Abra, something like local Bitcoins, where the traders themselves are the kiosks. The system is decentralized and it's people-based, and they'll lose all of this advantage.
Right. Well, also, I've never been to a Western Union kiosk, but I can only assume that they have currency conversions there as well. They also serve as a money exchange. I'm only guessing. I don't know if they are or not. But if they do serve as a money exchange, the best place to have a Bitcoin ATM, even if it has nothing to do with Western Union, they should be lobbying these Bitcoin ATM companies to stick Bitcoin ATMs there, because people will rush to them, pay them to exchange money just so they can stick the right currency into the ATM, or backwards. Someone is leaving a country with Bitcoin, they would love to go there because whatever money they get from that ATM in any country, they can immediately turn around, walk 3 steps, and exchange it for whatever currency they actually need. So Western Union can make money just by having an ATM within a few feet away from them. That's what happened. Like banks, I heard a story that when you put a Bitcoin ATM next to a regular bank ATM, all of a sudden the bank ATM gets way more business because people show up, take the cash out of the bank ATM, and put it right into the Bitcoin ATM right next to it.
It's certainly an opportunity for Western Union. They need to move quickly, though. Time is running out. And now moving on to predictions or story of the week. Tone Vase, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week?
No, Paul's going to go first. This is the part where I usually think of one while the other person speaks.
I didn't even know this was part of it. I only knew the different stories that you guys were going to talk about today.
We got to come up with predictions or story of the week.
I heard there was going to be a fairly major announcement from one of the bigger Bitcoin blockchain companies in the space coming out, I think, Monday or Tuesday.
Out of San Francisco? Can we at least say that?
Company not out of San Francisco. That already eliminates a lot of companies. But I can't say exactly who. But apparently they're going to have a talk at Consensus and announce something semi-major.
Because I know information, but I don't know what's proprietary and what isn't. So I don't know what I can and can't say.
Predictions?
No, we're so bad at this. You got like the wrong people on this.
Yeah, don't like calling the future. You got.
Well, I can't even help you either because I didn't write anything either. So I think we're going to just end the show here pretty soon. So you guys have anything you want to say before we end the show?
For anyone that's here in New York for Consensus, come say hi. We'll both be there, kind of wandering around. Got any questions about Raven Coin or Airbits? Come find us.
Yeah, come see us at Consensus. There'll be some after parties, so we'll be over there. Very social. We'll be talking to as many people as we can.
And a shout out to Zhao Tong and Tatiana Moroz, who are having a party at Consensus. I forget when it is, but everyone should go. Unfortunately, I'm not in New York, so I can't join you, but shout out to Zhao Tong. Great new video out this week. Bream, Bitcoin rules everything around me. Oh, we're out of time. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks much. See you, Tom, and everyone else.